going to be Songs Without Words by Mendelssohn, played by Benny and myself. Hang on, let's see what
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Frances Lorenz, and it's my delight to welcome you today. Our musicians today are Terry O'Hara on piano, Bienvenido Yangco, who just did the beautiful clarinet, and Stephan Plummer is our guest vocalist. So we're so glad they're here. So I want to introduce a special event. Yesterday was the first day of spring, and Leslie Willis has a beautiful ritual of Ostara that she'd like to share with you this morning.
Morning. Thank you, Reverend Frances. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share some beautiful pagan information and rituals. Many cultures around the world celebrate the equinoxes, and yesterday was the spring equinox. Ostara is a Wiccan holiday in celebration of the spring equinox. This is a traditional Celtic and Saxon holiday celebrating the German goddess of spring, Eostra. This holiday has later become known as the Christian holiday of Easter and was moved to another day to celebrate, which is the first Sunday following the first full moon following the spring equinox, in case you didn't know. One popular legend is that Eostra found a wounded bird on the ground late in winter. To save its life, she transformed it into a hare. But the transformation was not a complete one, and the bird took the appearance of a hare, but retained the ability to lay eggs. The hare would decorate these eggs and leave them as gifts to Eostra in gratitude for saving its life. So now think about your Easter baskets with the chocolate bunnies and the eggs. I just had that inspiration. Ostara is symbolized by the hare and eggs. Rabbits symbolize intuition, fertility, rebirth, and transformation. And they are often associated with moon magic. Eggs are a common symbol of the creation of life. Today, modern pagans mark Ostara as a time of renewal and rebirth. Ways to celebrate the returning sun is to take time to celebrate the new life that surrounds you in nature. Take a walk in a park, hike through a forest, be outside in the sun. Just walk and be outside. As you do so, observe all the new things beginning around you, plants and flowers, insects and birds. Meditate upon the ever-moving wheel of the year and celebrate the change of the seasons. It is the perfect time to start new projects, access new ideas, and give birth to new conditions. An affirmation that I have for spring and Ostara: I am refreshed and renewed in the bright light of spirit. Beauty are everywhere for me now. I am the light of spirit in human form. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessed be, and so it is. And we welcome spring with open arms.
Hi, Terry. Hi, everybody. I'm doing good, Terry. How are you doing, Terry? Let's give Terry some love. He's so fabulous over here. All the time. All right. You looking for a miracle today? Expecting the impossible? Feel the intangible? See the invisible? I'm looking for a miracle. I expect the impossible. I feel the intangible. I see the invisible. Looking for a miracle. I expect the impossible. I feel the intangible. I see the invisible. The sky is the limit to what I can have. The sky is the limit to what I can have. The sky is the limit to what I can have. If I believe it and receive it, God will perform it today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I believe it and receive it, God will perform it today. I'm looking for a miracle. I expect the impossible. I feel the intangible. I see the invisible. I'm looking for a miracle. I expect the impossible. I feel the intangible. I see the invisible. The sky is the limit to what I can have. The sky is the limit to what I can have. The sky is the limit to what I can have. If I believe it and receive it, God will perform it today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I believe it and receive it, God will perform it today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I believe it and receive it, God will perform it today. Yeah, if I believe it and receive it. If I believe it, yeah, I know God will perform it today. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's time for announcements. By the way, Leslie and her ritual. Yesterday I was thinking, how did rabbits and eggs get mixed up together? And she provided the answer. I hadn't ever heard that, so that's great. It's always good to learn something. Yeah. So announcements. We have a couple of classes that are starting in early April. One is visioning. Did you want to talk about this class, Matthew? Just briefly. You can. Yeah.
Good morning. I am excited to do this visioning class. I mean, some of you might know by now that I'm very passionate about visioning. It's really a big part of my unfolding ministry. And there's a real kind of magic in it, and it really produces tangible, life-changing results. So I'd like to invite you to join me in this class. It begins on April 12th. Through May 17th. It's at 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's going to be, I believe, Monday nights. So a really nice kind of beginning of your week class. You know, I think that if you do this class, you're going to begin to see shifts in your life that are monumental. So I'm excited to do it. I invite all of you to join. It'll be a wise investment in your entire life, and the tuition is $125 for 6 weeks. So pretty reasonable. So thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. I love visioning myself. I do it every week with someone, and it's very powerful. I mean, I've been doing it for years, and you get to see, if you're doing it with a group, transformations happen weekly. So there's another class coming up, which is actually we're going to put out a complete catalog of all of our new classes. Should be out next week, which will include everything for second quarter classes, including our wholeness, revealing wholeness class, which starts April 8th, that Susan Blake will be teaching. And so watch for that. That's a class on the relationship between mind, body, spirit. It starts April 8th. That's a Thursday night at 6 o'clock. So you'll be able to see those classes and flyers soon. All right. So I want to introduce our practitioner, Bev Holland, who's going to read a statement from our movement on solidarity with Asian Americans, and it's a very beautiful statement. So, Bev?
If you noticed me looking at my phone, that was because I was reading the statement. It's actually from our colleague, Reverend Masando Harioke. On Wednesday morning, we awoke to news of the largest mass shooting in the United States since the pandemic began. 8 people were shot and killed in 3 different locations, with 7 of those being women and 6 of those being AAPI, or Asian American Pacific Islander. While the shooter's full motive is still being investigated, we recognize the intersectionality of sexism, misogyny, and racism present in these murders. It must also be noted that this tragedy occurred on the same day that a report was released showing a 150% rise in hate crimes against AAPI, and more than 3,800 incidents in the past year alone. Fear and trauma in the AAPI community are very present right now. And as an organization that believes in oneness and holds a vision for peace and human dignity for all, we in CSL stand in solidarity with the AAPI community and speak this prayer for the families that are mourning and more healing of the racism and violence that created suffering in our world. So I invite you to close your outer eyes and listen to this prayer from Reverend Misando Harioke. We come to the present moment in a place of sadness and mourning, of confusion and anger, and come to know that in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of these natural responses to tragedy and violence, the presence of the living Spirit, the divine, is still fully here at the center of our being, providing a healing balm and a place where both grief and the healing that comes with that grief lives, moves, and has its being. We know this same healing energy is present for the families that have been directly affected by this tragedy. And we too know that the love we feel for our fellow AAPI brothers and sisters that are experiencing the collective trauma of this incident permeates out and surrounds and enfolds their hearts and minds. It is through this love and through the recognition of our oneness that we also stand and mourn in solidarity with the AAPI community and the trauma they've experienced in the past year since the pandemic began. We hold a place of safety, of strength, and of commitment to ensuring and upholding the safety and peace of all, giving special attention to our AAPI friends right now. And it is from this space we extend this prayer to our country and to the world, holding a place of healing from the ravages of separation, racism, misogyny, and the mindless acts that are birthed from hate and power over another. We hold a space for the collective healing that is being called forth from each one of us in this sacred time we are sharing on the planet together, allowing our hearts to build bridges of understanding, of greater awareness, and of the mending of all our relations. We know this work is God's work, and so take refuge in remembering that this healing is being supported by a power greater than ourselves. With each breath, with each tear, with each rush of anger or swirl of confusion, we rest in the knowing that healing is happening within us and around us. And as we rest into that space where grief, healing, and coming together can all take place at once, we give thanks for the heartbreaking that eventually settles into heart opening. We give thanks for the ways in which our own hearts are able to be moved and moved into an active inspiration to stand for one another. With love, with heartbreak, with togetherness, we say Amen. And so it is.
Good morning again. I'd like to invite you to, with me, just take that beautiful prayer into meditation. Let's just allow our eyes to close once again. And let's hear and feel ourselves breathe. Just noticing that rhythm of life that moves through us, that expresses through us and as us. The process of breathing is also God's work. It's God's work within us, moving through us, as us. As we acknowledge the presence this morning, I'd like to invite you to bring into your consciousness a possibility for yourself. As we celebrate the rebirth of life all around us, and as we hold all of those qualities of grief, of sadness, of healing, and of possibility together, What is a possibility this morning that you would like to breathe into, to move into, to express into? Let's just take a moment to let that reveal itself. And as we know that all things are possible, we live in a universe where all possibilities are available to us. I'd like to invite you to bring that which made itself known to you into your heart space. And let's just surrender into it this morning. Let's just open the channel of divine expression. And as we surrender into it, we don't need to know the exact dimension or how it's going to unfold. Let's just know within ourselves that the unfoldment has already begun, and that the universe has all of the details handled. So as we open to this possibility, let's also open to the greater possibility, the collective possibility of healing, movement, progress towards equality, towards dignity, towards the realization of God's work moving forward in, through, and as everything. Let's just breathe it into our heart space this morning and allow it to permeate our mind. And as we return to the room, I invite you to begin to allow this expression to unfold within you and take that with you today. May you be well, and so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Matthew. So beautiful. And Bev. I just have to thank everybody today. Thank you all. And happy spring. I was talking to Reverend Francis. I was like, oh yeah, I wrote a song about spring and seeds. And so this is a song I wrote many years ago. All these fruits I'm bearing. There's something inside, stronger than my heart and wiser than my mind. There's something inside, deeper than deep and wider than wide. What are these fruits I'm bearing? All this love inside, all this love inside, I want to keep on sharing. What are these fruits I'm bearing? All this love inside, all this love inside, I want to keep on sharing. God, sunshine of truth, warming my life, transforming my strife, performing the miracles of seeds, turning into fruits, like life everlasting and love never ending, and the peace of surrendering to. All these fruits I'm bearing, all God's love inside, all God's love inside, I want to keep on sharing with you. All these fruits I'm bearing, all God's love inside, all God's love inside, I want to keep on sharing. God, sunshine of truth, warming my life, transforming my strife, performing the miracles of seeds, turning into fruits, like life everlasting and love never ending, and the peace of surrendering to all these fruits I'm bearing. All God's love inside, all God's love inside, wanna keep on sharing with you. All these fruits I'm bearing, all God's love inside, all God's love inside, wanna keep on sharing with you. All God's love inside, all God's love inside, I wanna keep on sharing with you.
Thank you, Stephan. That's a beautiful song. When did you write that?
2001.
Wow, beautiful. So today's message is open to possibilities. It's part of that theme for the month. And I realized that in spite of COVID and all the things that are going on with that, we are living in an age of innovation. A day rarely passes without the discovery of some new cure, a process or technique, and it's estimated that the total body of knowledge is doubling every 5 years. Can you believe that? How exponential that is? Jesus was the great innovator of the soul, and he crossed into the frontier of the mind to discover a new world within himself. He also encouraged everyone he spoke to by saying, "You are the light of the world." What a profound message to people when you think about it. A city set on a hill cannot hide. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, he said. Let your light shine. And so Ernest Holmes, our founder, writes, when we were born into this world, we were accompanied by a spiritual presence that is the real self. But this spiritual self is pretty much an unknown guest to all of us. Our whole endeavor, whether we know it or not, is to reach this real self and bring it down into the mind. This is one of the chief aims of life, because it is this spirit within us that is the only direct avenue we have to God. And that's from an article that's in the new issue of Science of Mind magazine called Inner Guest. So those of you who are in the Saturday morning discussion group get to see that. We'll have magazines here next week. Paul Tillich, who's the catalyst for progressive theology, referred to God as the ground of our being. The ground of our being, think about that. That's the creative medium, the soil that awaits the seed of our thoughts. Jesus was open to all possibilities, and his work in the world revealed what Emma Curtis Hopkins calls the Jesus Christ doctrine, which is composed of these seed thoughts. 1, take no thought for tomorrow about what you'll drink, eat, or wear. You don't have to worry about it so much. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. We can have all things without ever trying to have them. We can use the power without long practice. And it's up to us to choose what we want to embody it's done unto us as we believe. And Ernest Holmes said, there's a power for good, and you can use it. But sometimes the seed that we receive, or that comes into our lives, comes in the form of a problem. And we all have problems from time to time. What's your relationship to these problems? What if you could think this problem is possibility? This problem is possibility. If some difficulty makes an entrance into our life, we usually just quickly label it a problem. And our tendency is to feel inferior and become exhausted, humiliated, or ground down. Webster defines problem as meaning to drive forward. For most of us, that doesn't happen. We sink under or are run over. So when you have a problem, what's your attitude? Did this come to me because it's some sort of punishment? Or do you say, this is always happening to me? These attitudes weld the problem in place. And at some point we hang on to it emotionally and verbally. The more we dwell on the problem, the more we'll keep it alive in consciousness. But really, within every problem are possibilities that are just scrambling to get out. If only we could realize that every problem bears gifts, bears fruits of enormous possibilities. I can stop focusing on worry and begin to welcome something new into my life. And we often judge by appearances. What can look chaotic is actually full of beauty and symmetry. Our job is to champion the good. I took a course recently on Julian of Norwich from Matthew Fox, and of course she lived in the early 1400s when the Black Plague hit, and there were 200 million deaths. Half of Europe died. And when she was 32 years old, she was dying from the plague. And the priest came to give her the last rites, and she had this incredible healing experience instantaneously. And then subsequently she experienced what she calls the viewings, or kind of just glimpses of the truth. I think there were 14 of them. And she received, one of her downloads was that everything was goodness. Like Emma says, my God is my good, and I deserve to have it. So her works were never released during the time of the plague. Instead, there was an avalanche of flagellators who walked through the towns of Europe who believed the plague was God's punishment. And so enter into the mystical realm of Christianity, the fall redemption theology that we still have today. And creation spirituality, the philosophy that God is good and that we experience an original blessing, not original sin, got incorporated into most of theology today. And creation spirituality began to scramble for expression. It was only because the nuns who were in Norwich decided to save her work and take it to Holland that this work was preserved. But it wasn't published till 200 years later. So I think about our plague and the over 500,000 people that have died in the U.S. alone, and it feels a little bit like Plato's cave allegory from the Republic. All the people are enclosed in a dark cave. And one of the seekers battles against being enclosed in that darkness, facing the walls of the cave, until he becomes totally exhausted and depleted. And finally he realizes it's not the cave, but the way he's coping with the cave. And he discovers a new way of transcending. He realizes that when he becomes calm, he is able to look around and discover that there is a remote light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way out. And of course, there's always an opening to the light to see another way when we're ready for it. And when we look for that opening instead of focusing on the problem, we can stop fighting and begin growing. So it's important to know deep within your heart that there's a possibility in your midst and that you can use your mind differently. You can magnetize possibilities and the divine creative power and make them work for you. Because the problem is none other than an invitation to move forward. Where are you going to go? By disengaging your focus on fighting the problem, you will be able to receive guidance and innovation. I recently heard that the next 20 years post-COVID, we are going to be massively prosperous because the problem of COVID has stimulated amazing innovations and has created a higher order of creativity, and I hope with it social justice. Some friends of mine wanted to celebrate getting their COVID shots because they've been diligently secluding themselves for over a year. They have their groceries delivered. They're never around any people. They hadn't gone out to a restaurant for over a year. So they invited Mario and I to celebrate their new sense of freedom at a restaurant in Tacoma called Social. It's been around for several years but was closed during COVID. And once the governor said it was okay to do outdoor dining, the owner, Philip, who's a wonderful man, he came over to our table. He responded by being creative. He built these wonderful tables with fire pits in the middle. And so people could go there, eat outdoors, dine, and still be toasty and warm at their table. And the problem of not being able to be open except to the outdoors didn't crater Philip. He innovated instead. So it's really done unto us as we believe. Can we accept an invitation for manifestation in the midst of a problem? And instead of attacking and reacting, we can experience visioning. We can set intentions that provide an opening and a space to bring forth possibilities that will align us to that universal creative power that will make stunning actualities. Whatever we believe becomes an invitation to the opening of light at the end of the tunnel, a passageway out of the dark problem in the cave. And your vital energies can be redirected. It doesn't mean that all action steps cease. You may have to do something at the level of your immediate needs, but you are surrendering to the higher possibilities, to your extensive creative resources as a being of light, as one who is a conduit of goodness, not oh godness. So we often think of that, or I think of that crack in the pot story of the man who carried 2 pots to the water and he filled them up, and unbeknownst to him, one pot had a leak in it and would leak all the way back to his home. And then one day he went out and he discovered that whole flower gardens had grown up where the pot had been cracked. So we need to acknowledge the cracks created by a problem so the light can flow out. There are huge openings right now unformed possibilities that are crying for a solution. And the solution calls for us to rise above conditions and circumstances, those we label as problems. It's important to go beyond hurtful words, to go beyond a negative diagnosis, to call to your preferred future. You can call out to those possibilities. And of course, you can live without accepting other possibilities. That way of thinking rejects expanded realities. Where your mind goes, power flows. So some time ago, a book was written about hunger in the world, and it predicted massive food shortages in the world if people didn't lower birth control to 1 child per family, I think. At least in China, that's the policy they adopted. So I just learned recently of a small little company in the United States that has decided to create vertical agriculture to end hunger. And it's building hydroponic gardens 100 feet in the air. It doesn't use chemicals on the crops. It uses LED lights and just a very small amount of water, so it's actually environmentally very wonderful. So I just see all these wonderful responses to crises and know that powerful possibilities can be revealed despite gigantic world problems. So the other thing I want you to remember is the universe has your back. It's always conspiring for your highest and best. And so are you ready to cooperate with that intention of your source today? I often think of our lives as having a great purpose. Emma Curtis Hopkins says there's something that we were all intended to do that no other person on the planet can fulfill. A friend of ours named Heidi DeMayosin came to Tacoma from North Carolina to visit her sister who lives here in Tacoma. And as she was driving past our center, she saw about 10 volunteers outside helping repaint the building. This was the first repainting when it was repainted white. And she stopped. She wanted to volunteer too. And so over the years, she's kept in touch with Mario and me. She owns a home in Marshall, North Carolina, and it's solar powered, totally off the grid. And she's also a nurse and says that it's the best profession of all because nurses are needed everywhere. So she can take off anytime and travel any place in the United States and find employment. So she had saved her money and decided she wanted to ride everywhere in the United States on a 3-wheel bike. And she had many adventures, but she did it over the course of a year. And now she's a spiritual counselor, and she's written an ebook on this experience, and you can find it by Googling Heidi DeMayosin. But she's the person that let new possibilities come forth in her life. You see, every problem is a seed for the possible. So what do you do with it? You examine the problem, write it down. You may think your problem is discouragement, but it may be that you're just blocking your full expression. And secondly, figure out what's yours to do. It's not your problem to see that people do what you'd like. It's your responsibility to hold the high vision for healing and health. So what greater possibility is inviting you to advancement? And then go to a place of possibility. Everything's about consciousness. Breathe deeply. Use prayer treatment, visioning, looking up, or so that unexpected ideas can show up. And pull out the welcome mat and a new vision will show up. and then take action. When the guidance is clear, you can take action. And finally, anchor an awareness of the light of your being. Every day, ponder, who am I? When I stand in Spirit's divine image of me, who am I? Who am I when I get out of the way and allow Spirit to shine? Who am I when I let Spirit be Holy Spirit in and through me? So you yourself may be a messenger to others. You may be the source of greater possibilities to another person. Roger Teal shares an anonymous prayer that he was given when he was early on in his career as a minister. And it's a great prayer. I think I gave Bev copies if you'd like to take one with you after service, or if you're watching online, I'll be happy to send it to you by email. But it's a great prayer for proclaiming the truth about people around you. And I invite you to pray this prayer, and I'll read it to you as a closing. Child of light, I bless you. I think of you. I pray for you, not in terms of what you need or what I think you should do or express. I lift up my thoughts about you. I catch a new vision of you. I see you as a child of light. I see you guided and directed by an inward spirit that leads you unerringly on the path that is just right for you. I see you strong and whole. I see you blessed and prospered. I see you courageous and confident. I see you confident, capable, and successful. And I see you free from every limitation. I see you as a spiritual being. You truly are. Child of light, I bless you. And so it is. I bless you. Thank you. God will make a way.
So I wrote this a number of years ago as well. One of the miracles for me was that I was a musician my whole life, and I was raised in a church, but I never wrote any gospel songs. And one day I heard God say to me, I want you to write gospel songs. I was like, I don't think I can, you know? It's like, oh, yes, you can. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then they just started pouring out of me. So all the songs, I just say God wrote them, and I just wrote the words and sing them. Divided the day, created the night, wondrous ways the moon gives its light. When I couldn't find a way out of fear, I reached deep inside and I found you here. I found you here. Oh, I found you here. God will make a way. 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 When there's no way, all the loaves, count all the fish, but there's not enough to each get our wish. Fill up our hearts and fill up our souls, fill up the world with riches untold. All the riches untold, all
riches untold. But God will make a way. 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 When there's no way, miracles every day, intelligence on the way, total bliss we can find it, peace of mind all the time. God is day, God is night, peace is good, peace is kind, and we'll find a way every time, yes, we'll find a way every time, yes, we'll find a way every time, yes, we'll find a way every time, every time, every time, every time, every time, every time. Oh, God will find a way every time, every time, every time, every time, every time. Oh, God will make a way. 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 When there's no way, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So it's time for our offering, and we like to say the blessing that's in your program and on the screen. So let's say that together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And Bienvenido is going to play Be Thou My Vision, which is an Irish folk song.
Please join me for a healing prayer. I invite you to close your outer eyes and know with me the truth that in this season of blooming and buds and green and more green and rain and more rain, it is a time of life, a time when the manifestation of new life is everywhere present. I recognize it absolutely everywhere in our beautiful world. And I know that this same spirit that allows everything to become new every year and every day and every moment, it allows the same newness to come within me and within everybody's heart that is within my voice. And I recognize that this same spirit which produces such beauty, also allows human frailty. And so today I recognize the truth within me and the truth within everyone here, that we all have that healing power within us. It is spirit. We need only accept it. Whether our need is relational, physical, intellectual, emotional, or spiritual, spirit is here. Spirit is deep within each and every one of us and can move and have its being within us if we only accept it. And so that is the truth for today and every day. And I'm so grateful knowing these truths. And so I release it into the law. And I say, thank you, God. And so it is.
All right. Do you all want to sing a song from Cinderella? It's in your program. Everybody ready to sing? Me. You ready, Karen? Here we go. It's possible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage. It's possible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage. And four white mice will always be four white horses. Help me out. Such full of joy and fidelity of courses. Impossible, but the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed dopes keep building up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. Okay, now we know the words now, right? You ready to sing again? It's possible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage. It's possible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage. And four white mice will always be four white horses, such fullity and fidelity of courses. Quite possible, it's possible, but the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed dopes keep building up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible.
Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next week. Next week is Palm Sunday, and we have a rose blessing ceremony. So be sure and come. So getting ready for Easter, which happens on April 4th. God bless you all. Have a great week.